5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond with your host, Justin.
But before we get started, how was your Geek Week?
And co-hosts Dan and Jason.
You have to be willing to let the dice help you tell the story.
Okay, look, this year I'm going to stop mispronouncing words. Join us as we cover board games to war games and beyond.
And welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. This is Winning Warcry. Welcome to the show, Dan and Jason.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, it's good times.
You know, I feel like a month is so long between shows, but then sometimes it feels like it goes by super fast.
That's what happens when you get older.
So I'm super happy to be talking about Warcry today because Jason and I played Warcry over the weekend, and it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, it was fun, as always. I think it's the first time we've played each other in a while, though.
It was a while. It had been a while. So, interestingly, we just had kind of an impromptu Warcry night. Our other host, the other Dan, finally got his Daughters of Cain put together. And so he's like, I'm ready to play Warcry. Let's play it. So we did a kind of an impromptu Warcry night at his place. One of our other friends who was kind of new to the game came over. And another guy who was pretty new to the game came over as well. So we had 5 of us. And Jason decided that because I always tend to be the TO, that he would take TO duties for the evening.
Nice.
And
Happy to do it.
Yeah. So I got to play. I finally got to play again. And I played Horns of Hashut for the evening. I played against the Iron Golems, and I'll kind of give a report as we talk about Horns of Hashut during our breakdown tonight. And then I played against Jason. I played against you with your Flesh Eater Court. So we had a good time.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah. The other people that were playing, let's see, Sean, he was playing Iron Golems, a list that I had put together for him. And then Adam was playing Thunderstrike Stormcast Eternals. And then Dan was playing his Daughters of Cain. So it was pretty good evening.
Good times. I think that we'll get into it, but I was really happy to see Dan put a full warband that he had assembled and painted himself on the table.
He was pretty proud of that, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, as you should be. As you should be. So, before we get into everything else, though, let's talk hobby table. Dan, what's on your hobby table, buddy?
I've been painting terrain, mostly as an excuse to figure out. I bought a bunch of the new contrast paints, and I've been trying to figure out what they do. And I feel like with terrain, I feel a lot less pressure, to get it right the first time. So I've been just testing the new contrast paints on terrain. Also testing some of the old contrast paints that I didn't like much on terrain, like Creed Camo and Ultramarine are some of the ones that I've not had success with, and so I was trying them out kind of in different ways to see if I could get results I liked. And it worked well with Ultramarine. I still don't like the way Creed Camo came out on some of the terrain I put it on, but batting 50-50 isn't bad there. So been doing terrain and just starting some Nurgle stuff. Not going to do enough for any kind of AOS purposes, but just enough for a Warcry warband, I think.
Demons or the what do they call them? The
Demons, yeah. I got
mortals, I guess.
Yeah, I got a pretty cool little chimera off of Etsy that fits the size perfectly. It's the size of my Bloodthirster, which is on the same base as a regular chimera is. But it's got a dragon head, a goat head, and a lion head, and so I'm painting up some plague bearers and a sloppity bile piper to go with it. and then I'm gonna get a Beast of Nurgle along the line here eventually, and then cool thing about the Plague Bearer box is it comes with a ton of random Nurglings just to
Yeah.
stick on their bases. But if you just don't put them on their bases and you just put them all, I had a 50 millimeter base kind of left over from something or other, and I just stuck all the extra Nurglings on that base, and I'm gonna call it a Nurgling so that I don't have to go get the kit. So really nice little bonus there from getting the Plague Bearer kit.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's very cool. I think you showed us that Chimera model the last time. You were kind of pointing some stuff out on Etsy. You're like, check out this Chimera. So I think we saw it. It looked really cool.
Yeah, you saw the Etsy pictures of it. So right now I've just got it. It's been like I spray painted it mint green to get ready to do the Nurgle stuff on it. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
That'll be great. That'll be really good. Jason, what's on your hobby table?
Well, I did a bunch of terrain, but it was for Kill Team. But it doesn't matter. I was really kind of playing with the idea of how to do a board, an actual terrain board, right? Like, so when you get these, Warcry boxes or Kill Team boxes, the mats that come in them are just kind of cardboard. They're cool looking, but they're kind of just cardboard flat mats that have some pictures on them. So I took some of the extra foam I had and I tried doing some experimentation, with kind of some paver cement and Mod Podge and stuff. And I thought I got and some oil washes, and I got a really cool effect that I felt like kind of matched what the terrain board that came in the box was going for, but gave a nice hearty texture to it so that it gave a much more kind of rich depth feel, like your models were really playing on Earth versus just playing on a board. So I think I'm feeling good with the scheme that I have. So now I'm going to go ahead and do like a full 22 by 30 so that we can use it in Warcry or on Kill Team.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was over at his house and saw half the board that he was messing around with. And just having that kind of like 3D texture was really nice.
Yeah, and it's also like probably only, I'm doing the math in my head right now, it's probably only like $30 worth of material to make that board. Because, the oil, just two colors in oil. I do an ivory black and a burnt umbra, and I just mix the brown and the black together to get kind of a muddy look to it. And then the paver cement, like, we talked, you can get kind of a bucket of paver cement for like $8, right, at Home Depot. Mm-hmm. And then the foam board itself, I don't know, it's something like a 10 by 6 foot thing of foam is only like $14. So you can do it super cheap. Well, I guess the Mod Podge is probably the most expensive thing in there, but
yeah, right.
It's like $8 for a tiny little thing of Mod Podge. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, good, easy stuff. So that's what I've been working on.
Nice, very good. I finished my Heart of Gur terrain the other day, so I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm especially happy with the bamboo. Let me tell you this recipe that I kind of came up with, because I was looking at a lot of people's recipes online for the bamboo, and to me it all looked too much like bone. And part of it was because they were putting down like either a white, kind of like, or it was like a gray, and then they'd dry brush white over it, or they would put down something like an Ushabti bone or something, and then put the skeleton horde over it. So it looked very similar to the bone that they had, and I wanted some differentiating color there because bamboo doesn't look like bone,
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures online right now of giant pandas eating bamboo, and you're right, it doesn't look like bone at all.
Doesn't
it's
look like
big
bone at all.
grass, right? It's essentially just really big, thick grass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I saw an interesting picture online the other day. Somebody had done green bamboo like it was freshly cut, and before it died, and I thought that looked really good. But what I wanted to go with, I needed it more yellowy orange, rather than kind of ivory that you kind of go for.
Yep.
So I found a pot of paint that I had gotten. This is one of my very first pots of paint I had ever gotten from Games Workshop. It was Ungor Flesh, because I was painting some Beastmen models for our Shadow of the Demon Lord role-playing game. I found some Beastmen at a game store down in Newport News, Virginia, that were just kind of like loose models. And I'm like, well, this is skin tone, looks like Beastmen. So, and they were Ungors, or no, they were Gores, actually, not Ungors, but Gores. So anyway, I had this pot, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect, because it sucks actually as a skin tone. It's really not good. It's very orangey, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, I mean, I guess it kind of worked for Beastmen, but it's not my favorite.
Which one is this again?
Ungor Flesh.
Ungor Flesh. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty orangey. And so I never had good success with it. Like the color I really wanted when I got that pot was Cadian Flesh Tone. Like that's the color I really wanted. But Ungor Flesh is orangey. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the color. So I painted my bamboo with it, and it looked really good, but it wasn't pulling out a lot of the little details. So I did a thin coat of the Skeleton Horde contrast over it, and oh my gosh, I love how it turned out. Like, it looks really, really good. And I don't know if I posted a picture of it in our Discord or not. But
yeah,
I'll have to...
You'll have to post one after the podcast drops.
Yeah, because I was super, super duper happy with it. Yeah, in fact, I don't think I even took a picture of it since then. But yeah, I mean, I painted the stonework, kind of that Seraphon green. Really took some time with the bone effects on it, and then pulled out the wood and stuff like that. So I'm very happy with how it came out. I thought it looked good on the table. Jason had issues with the terrain though. On the table, right, Jason?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was, and it wasn't just me. It was me and the other two players. Like every time we barely touched it, like the little hooks and sharp edges were catching on our hands, our clothes, our skins, our models. Like the little ladder things between, or the bridges, kept popping and flying and grabbing. And it wasn't like you just bumped the ladder and it would just fall off. You'd bump it, but it had other hooks on it, so it would hook the tree, and then the tree and the ladder and everything would just go sprawling across the table. It was like the whole game. We were like accident. It got to the point where we were like, it was almost like we were doing surgery on the board whenever we had to move anything near the terrain.
Oh no!
I mean, it was still really fun to play on because it's very thematic, but yeah, and to Justin's point, like we weren't really focusing on not doing that, but we had to pay attention to the terrain a lot more because it's not flat and heavy like a lot of stuff is,
Right, like the original starter set terrain is like really thick and again low slung ruins. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it has it's very stable. The original is very stable. This one is I think the trees are stable. The problem is those ladders hook easy, and then they don't unhook from the trees when they fly. So a little nudge on a bridge or a ladder is going to nudge the thing it's attached to.
Yeah.
Funny.
Still really fun and cool to look at, though. I mean, it looks great.
Yeah, I'm super happy with it. I was going to start painting the Horns of Hashut tonight, but then I decided that it's Orktober, so...
decided to do the podcast. That's what happened.
Yeah. It's Orktober, so I am going to, or I have been painting up my Kill Team orcs that have been sitting on my shelf staring at me, and I said, let's get this done before the end of October. That's a great goal, to have it done. So we're a little late recording tonight because I was super duper focused on getting some skin tones right on those orcs. So, but yeah, I'm moving along with hobbying. It's always fun to finish like a big project and then just like start anew on a new one. Like that's always very satisfying to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Okay. Cool. Lots of good hobby stuff. I just love the fact that we're hobbying all the time. Like we never stop. We always got something to go. And I think that's part of the allure of these skirmish games. I've got so many little war bands that I could work on, and I don't feel bogged down by these 2,000 point armies or 3,000, 4,000 points that I need to, build and paint and put together. So
Yep. Yep. Totally. I keep looking at my ogres because they're not 100% painted. My ogre AOS army that I started before COVID, and then looking back at my skirmish teams and saying I'm just gonna do them. It's just so much more manageable.
yeah. Although your ogre's book is coming out soon. Are you even gonna get it?
I don't know, man. I'm having so much fun in the skirmish world right now. I think I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm having fun with because my time is limited.
And for the record, Jason, you have yet to play an AOS 3.0 game.
Yet to play it. Yep. Just hasn't found time to do it. And we've talked about it before. It's just the skirmish games are so much more accessible, except for our 4-hour kill team.
So,
oh my gosh.
So the running joke, Dan, is that whenever we play a new game, it takes us 4 times the amount of time to actually play a game. We played, what was it? It was a 500, 800 point, something like that.
Our
game of
first
Age of
AOS
Sigmar.
was 500 points.
500 points. It took us 4 hours to play it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like, all right, I'm going to attack. Okay, how do I attack? I don't know. Let's look it up.
Yeah, because it's like the blind leading the blind, right?
Yeah.
We don't have someone there being like, oh no, this is what you do. And had we had somebody there teaching us how to do it, we would have played a 500 point game in an hour. You know what I mean? No problem.
Yeah.
But it's referencing the rules and being like, wait, can you do that? Can you not do that? And second guessing yourself and then having to reread everything. And
that's what it was like with Kill Team, though. We went to get going. It was like, okay, all right. So now we set up the objectives. Okay, cool. All right. So now we roll. Okay, cool. So now we put our models on. Okay, cool. Are we ready? Are we ready to start? Nope. But wait. There's something else we have to do. We have to pick our tactical ops. Okay, great. All right. Okay, wait. There's something else to do. It was I felt it was 45, 50 minutes before we even finished setting up the game, and we were like, holy crap! Wait, equipment. Okay, now we got to put equipment on our guys, and remember who we attach it to.
Yeah.
I've heard Kill Team flows pretty well once you kind of learn the language, but with all the symbols and everything in the latest Kill Team edition, it's got a high barrier to entry, but I've heard it's just as quick as Warcry once you've actually got it down.
Our first round took us an hour. And our last round, now granted we had less models, but our last round took us 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Okay.
we knew what we were doing, we knew how those guys were playing,
We knew our profiles, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we knew the rules at that point. Okay, well, when I move and I dash, this is what that means, and this is what you can do, you can't do. So we already knew that. So I think if we were to play it again, we'd finish a Kill Team game in maybe an hour and a half.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It's a very tactically, it's a very different game than Warcry, in my opinion.
I think so. I think that it's still heavy movement control, but the movement is significantly different than Warcry. It is very different. The movement is very different than Warcry.
And because because everything has a gun, that just changes the dynamic of things a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So, and so it's a different game, but it was a lot of fun, and we're definitely throwing this into the skirmish games mix rotation that we have. So,
But tonight it's about Warcry.
But tonight is about Warcry. So speaking of Warcry, we had some big news. Well, I don't know if it was news per se. A big teaser dropped this week. Dan, do you want to walk us through what this teaser was?
Yeah, very exciting. So this is something we'd kind of been speculating about since we very first saw the first trailer for the Warcry 2nd Edition, right? Was when are we going to get non-Chaos Warbands? And if they're telling us that all of this is about Seraphon, when are we going to see the Seraphon? And we finally did. They've shown us, I think we've seen 2, right? 2 chameleon skinks, which is really exciting. The other thing that's exciting to me is that the chameleon skinks don't look exactly like the chameleon skink from the Underworld's warband that came out. I guess this is 3 years ago now. It's older, but they they tried this out because there's this whole thing about how they need to refresh the Seraphon range, right? Because
Yeah.
all those sculpts are pretty old. I actually think some of the big ones, like the Bastillodon and the Carnosaur, hold up pretty well, but um, a lot of the rank and file Seraphon, you know, don't hold up nearly as well. And uh, so the first sort of draft at new Seraphon sculpts came out, 3 or 4 years ago, and the chameleon skink in there is just a chameleon. It's just a big chameleon.
Yeah.
Whereas these are more sort of anthropomorphized chameleons that fit a little bit closer to what else is going on with the Seraphon range in terms of like sentient lizards and sentient dinosaurs. Um, and I think they look really good. What are your impressions of these skinks?
So, it's showing two of them in the article that came out. Let's see, when did it come out? It came out on the 10th, so 2 days ago, right? And I think you're right. Like the anthropomorphization of these skinks, I think is critical, right? Like it's not like they're just kind of like weird lizards hanging out. Like they're holding blowpipes, they're standing on 2 feet, And one of my favorite things is one of the skinks, like there's actually like a little lizard crawling up near his foot.
Oh, look
So
at that. It's a snake. It's crawling through a skull. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and then there's like the other one's like a little like lizard too, and so
Oh, yeah, you're right.
yeah, so I mean, like I like it because it's kind of throwing back to me and like, hey, these are not just like lizard people. I mean, they are, but they're not lizards. They're heavy on the people, light on the lizards, I guess. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I love the poses that they have. Like I think they look very dynamic with them. One's actually like blowing out on the blowpipe. And I was thinking about this the other day because I was putting together some orcs for the kill team, and one of the guns like kind of like comes down past the top of the base. It kind of hangs
Yep.
over the edge, and
Yep.
the blowpipe skink does the same thing. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like it. I like it when they kind of do that because it doesn't feel like it's so contained. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's not like overhanging to a point where something's gonna break.
Right.
So, but
And the other
I
thing
think
I
I think they're good.
cool. Yeah, the other thing I like about these is it's been easy with a lot of GW's latest sculpts to kind of accuse them of over detailing models, and they've
Right.
created a ton of dynamism here without actually putting like there's a lot of canvas here. You could paint these skinks however you want. The
Uh-huh.
artist here has done a ton of creative license with kind of doing different shades of green all over the place, and they've actually like free-handed markings on their on this kind of upper frill that's going on
Yeah.
with them. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot of people sort of creating cool color schemes on these skinks.
Well, and I like the kind of the base part of the model, because like they're standing on ruins, and I think for like a little skink, like that just adds so much to the story of the model, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna. The thought is that this is the one half of the quarterly Warcry box that's coming out, and part of it.
Sundered Fate is the name of it.
What's it called?
It's called Sundered Fate.
Where I must have missed that. Was that in the?
They yeah, they
article?
sent out the names of the kind of their Warcry plan, their Warcry roadmap. Had the first names of the
Oh,
first
that's
three
right.
boxes. The first one is Sundered Fate. The next one is like Blood something. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, so I wasn't sure. I'll have to find the name of the next one. I mostly just remember the name of the first one because a lot of people were
Yeah.
saying it would be Zinch, and it still could be. It could be Seraphon versus Zinch, of
Oh
course.
yeah, very, very, very
But
good point.
but yeah, we know at least half of it is going to be lizard folk, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and part of the reason we also know that this isn't just like a one warband release like the Chaos Legionnaires is that they specifically in the article called out new terrain pieces that was in the video that they showed, right? And there's a couple little terrain pieces that you could see. Like one has like some stretched leather, and then there was like another one that had a different kind of platform than the ones that had come out in the Heart of Gur. And so obviously they're not just going to separately release terrain and a warband. So it's going to be coming out in a battle box basically, and so I'm excited for it. What is the other side of this? Do you think is coming out?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't be surprised still to see the other side being Tzeentch, just because
Uh-huh.
anytime someone says fate, that makes sense. And okay, so here's where I put on the tinfoil hat. Um, so one thing that Kill Team I noticed they were doing last year was they would do things like have there was a Kill Team box that was Chaos Space Marines versus Eldar,
Yeah.
and it came out like right after the Eldar Codex came out,
Mm-hmm.
and um, probably mildly annoying for some Eldar fans because the Eldar from the Kill Team box weren't in the Codex, and then you had to get this little supplement and then get the data sheet and
Nice.
maybe slide it into your Codex or something, which I'm sure was a little annoying, but it makes sense from a kind of a marketing standpoint. Like while people are thinking about Eldar or maybe painting Eldar armies, it's like, hey, here's the Eldar Kill Team, right? And they've got the you know, I think it was Eldar Pirates.
Yeah.
Um, and so I
Yeah. The
wouldn't be,
Corsairs.
yeah. And so since we're having this Tzeentch Battle Tome come out so recently in AOS, I just wouldn't be surprised to see, why not time it alongside a Warcry box that is half Tzeentch. It just makes so much sense. And Seraphon and Tzeentch both they're a natural matchup against each other because
Yeah.
they're both so magical and so kind of mysterious seeming. Um, so that would be my bet, would be we see that. And then my other side of the tinfoil hat, sorry to go on, I'm just going to finish
It's
this
fine.
one rant, is the other thing we've seen in Kill Team is they've done a lot of updates to 40k units within a Kill Team setting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if our Chameleon Skinks, if it's just 5 of them, and they're just, hey, this is the new Chameleon Skink War Scroll, and you get it in the Warcry box, and
Right.
that's what the name of the game is. And then 5 would be a little short for a warband. Maybe they'll have 2x5, so it's just 10 Chameleon Skinks.
Uh-huh.
Um, hey, maybe they'll have 9 and say that a unit of Chameleon Skinks is 3 models, something like that. So
Yeah.
here's your whole battle line full of Chameleon Skinks, or here's a fully reinforced unit of Chameleon Skinks. Um, or the other thing they could do, we could still see revamped, um, a revamped Seraphon thing. So you could have a Salamander hunting pack. You could have just 5 Chameleon Skinks, a Salamander, and 2 Skink Herders,
Right.
and that's a warband. That's
Yeah.
8 models. That could absolutely just be a warband. So
And that could be like the group unit in Age of Sigmar, right? That has its own special war scroll, or
absolutely, because
yeah.
exactly they already have a War Scroll now. So then it would give them a great excuse to update the War Scroll because AOS players are complaining about Salamander hunting packs like constantly, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still a problem in the meta,
It
but I
is.
know it. Okay, yeah, it has been a problem in their meta for like
Yeah.
2 years now. So
Yeah.
it'd be a great excuse for them to just update the War Scroll, and AOS players would be happy, Warcry players would be happy to have it, do something upgraded in Warcry. So yeah, there's a lot they could do there.
The nice thing about having a Skinks versus Tzeentch thing is that those are two of the most notoriously expensive warbands to get into. If you
Oh
want to
yeah,
get a warband together in those factions, like the Tzeentch one, like you have to buy to start collecting, but it's really not like it's okay. You know what I mean? Like you'd have
yeah,
to get other like more elite units and things like that, and kind of the same thing with the Seraphon. Like the start collecting Seraphon isn't fantastic for Warcry.
It's
So
not. You'd want to be like pretty fluent in eBay to get the
yeah,
start collecting skinks, sell the Bastillodon,
yep,
and then, oh, but now in Warcry 2.0, it's not quite as skink heavy, so maybe you would want to go with the Seraphon one, but the Saurus start collecting is just Saurus warriors and knights.
right,
That's not
exactly.
really, yeah, yeah, good point.
So if they have an optimized Seraphon warband that maybe it's like the hunting packers. Let's just call it that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The Seraphon hunters or something. That they have their special name, and you can add to it. Obviously, like you drop maybe a couple chameleon skinks, you could add like a different Seraphon model if you wanted to. You know. Then yeah, maybe that'd be pretty good, easy to get into. Like if they sell this box after the big box comes out, they sell that unit as a Warcry band for $60. Like that's way easier to get into than what it would require now. So
yeah.
and again, it's almost the same thing on the Zine side as well. So I don't know. So I heard that some people were thinking greenskins, like that they were going to do a refresh on Bone Splitters. For that, for all the reasons that you said about Zinch, and the fact that I think Games Workshop has like almost no love for Bone Splitters, like I don't see that happening. I also don't see two like green factions facing off against each other. Like that looks terrible on the cover of a war box.
Oh, fascinating. I didn't think about that, but you're right. They wouldn't
You know?
do they wouldn't do green skins against another green faction, would
Yeah,
they?
and here they have the art for these skinks right here. They're green. So,
Yeah.
you know that they're going to be putting some green stuff on that. So, I don't see the bone splitters showing up there. If I were going out on a limb, just kind of like if like maybe a wish, maybe there could be a cool ogre refresh. Like maybe there's like a man eater um like warband that gets put together.
I mean,
It's
they play
kind of like
ogres get a taste of lizard.
yeah, and they kind of look like
Yeah.
conquistadors going into the jungle. You know what I mean, with their flare
They
hats
want
and
some
stuff
of that
like that.
greasy gator. That's what they want.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like if I would love to see a destruction warband get in there because obviously Seraphon is order and we've had a ton of chaos. So maybe a cool like specific destruction warband. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
I don't know. You threw me with the double green on the box.
Uh.
I think that's a really valid point. I think it's
Yeah.
a really valid point. Yeah.
You need something that's going to be completely against it. Like if you were to go colors, like you almost got to think it's got to be like like corn. I think Zinch would be totally fine, because you have that very rich blue. Corn, because you have the red and the green that would offset each other.
Yeah.
Or you could do
But
one of these grayscale war bands because that kind of fits with everything. So
uh-huh.
like Soulblight, like that's always kind of gray unless the vampires are involved or Slaves to Darkness, but people would riot if there was another Slaves to Darkness war band.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they've played that out for now.
yeah. Um, Destruction wise, yeah, I can't think of
Because
because
we
it's
already had a
all
Gits box.
We had a
it's all
Zinch box. I guess Zinch is they're chaos, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
But they could do a Zinch. They could totally do a Zinch box. I don't see them doing Nurgle because they just came out with the Rotmeyer Creed,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you know.
And they're
So,
green.
and they're green. So, I mean, it could be a random new bespoke warband, that's like completely new.
I would bet, yeah, I would bet, like, if it is Zinch, it won't be Arcanite's Zinch. It'll be something bespoke. Maybe it'll feel a little bit like Carrick Acolytes,
Uh huh.
but it's going to be, like, this is what Zinchi mortals look like in Gur. You know, I would
Right.
be pretty shocked if we get any warbands that aren't at least a little Gurified.
Hmm.
Because even these chameleon skinks, they're just like a little bit more jungly than your average Seraphon are, and Seraphon fit in the jungle anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But these have been kind of extra jungled by the fact that they're sort of creeping on branches and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I'd be pretty shocked if we don't get like a kind of a slightly gur flavor to whatever warband we get.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the nice thing is that we can rule out any order faction because they're not going to do an order versus an order, right?
Right.
So no Stormcast Eternals, no Daughters of Cain, no Sylvaneth, no Cities of Sigmar, none of that stuff. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting. So, any parting thoughts from either of you? How much do you think the box is going to be?
It'll be less, I
Yeah.
think, than
Yeah.
the core box was. Um, I don't know how much less, but because they won't have the core book in there, they won't have,
The
you
dice,
know,
the ruler, like,
yeah, the cards, stuff
yeah.
like that. The terrain will probably be a little bit less. Well, maybe not. Maybe it'll be about the same since they said that all the terrain is going to be kind of riffing off the same theme, which I
Uh huh.
love that, by the way. It kind of goes with this whole quarterly thing of,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's been really good for the game, just promising this quarterly release update. I think a lot of us complained about it, saying like, well, Warcry can't handle that much stuff. Um, people aren't going to be able to get every box anymore. In retrospect, all those arguments were terrible because what it does is it keeps interest in the game. It shows like, listen, if you don't like Chaos Cows versus Chaos Toads, uh, just wait 3 months and you'll get, Order Lizards versus something. Um, and it kind of keeps bringing Warcry up in people's minds, and it's been great for Kill Team for like refreshing all these ideas and putting all this new world building into the 40K universe. And I think a year down the road, I think we're going to look at this quarterly release schedule and we're going to think it was really great for the game.
I think so. I think as collectors, because a lot of us Warcry people are collectors, right? I think we're sitting here going like, oh my gosh, that's going to be approximately $800 a year that I spend on this hobby, just on this.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
completionist nightmare, that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. But the thing is like, I've kind of stopped building AOS armies, and an AOS army is like $1,000. And if I was doing one of those a year, you know what I mean? So I'm just redirecting my funds into other ways, and this is one of the arguments is like, hey, if you've got a robust gaming group, like split up the box purchases and then share the armies, kind of.
Yeah.
If that's kind of what you want to do, like, hey, tonight I'll play Horns of Hashut. Hey, next week I'll play, Seraphon, and let's just mix it up a little bit. Because that's always fun to do too, and that kind of helps spread the wealth a little bit. I agree. I think it's going to come with about the same amount of terrain. I think that this Hardiger, like in terms of amount of terrain, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't feel like it nearly as much as the first box.
It didn't, but the map still felt full with
Yes.
the size of the trees.
Yes. The first box though had a table and a half worth of terrain, so you still had like another half a box of terrain sitting in the box when you had a full table. And your Heart of Gur, I can really only build one table's worth of Warcry
Yeah, agreed.
with that. Like I won't be
thi-
able to spread that out into multiple tables.
Yeah, so to your question, I think this box is going to cost somewhere between 120 to 150. I think if
Maybe.
you got two war bands, think about 40 to 50 bucks a war band, and then terrain inside there, and then the
So
rules that come with it.
I think it could go anywhere from 120 to 175.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
fair range.
reason why I say 175 is because the Kill Team Morok box that had Space Marines and the bloodied, which are like basically like disfigured, warp creation things. That went for 170. It's like 175.
Oh, so
You
you're
know,
probably right. I'm changing all my bets to 175 then, if that's true. I would bet they match the kill team prices.
but I think the recent box. I'm curious about what the recent
Now, are we
box
talking
is.
the Amazon 35% off price or the
I
Oh
can't
yeah,
find it
before
anywhere.
discounts. So
before
once you get the
discounts? There you go.
discounts,
Okay.
yeah.
But I couldn't find Morok for anything less, and that included Games Workshop. Like everybody, well, I mean it was less, but then the shipping was like $15. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, interesting.
All right.
So, yeah, but the thing is your box, Jason, the one that you got for Kill Team was like 120, right?
Yeah, it was about 120 bucks.
Yeah.
That was discount though. That was the, with the whatever the when someone's a valid reseller and they can do their discount whatever thingy.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is the price you typically get on Amazon because those dudes are just scrapping for penny revenue or penny profits anyways. They're going for quantities.
Yeah. 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 Interesting.
So
Okay.
speaking of these bespoke boxes that they're putting out, you've actually put one on the table
Yes, sir.
and enough to say that we're gonna go and deep dive one of these two factions, the Horns of Hashut.
Yeah. So we had a great, like we said, we had a great little kind of Warcry night, and I decided to bring Horns of Hashut. Now I kind of developed two lists. One of them had a Chimera in it, but I didn't actually put that one on the table because I wanted to see how the warband handled by itself straight out of the box. And the first game I played against an Iron Golems list that I had put together that had dropped basically the 3 Legionnaires and put in a Ogoroid Myrmidon. And I ended up losing that game against them. It was a pretty close game. It was a very close game, but it was interesting because some of those... the Iron Golems are actually pretty good now. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, they got huge buffs. They got huge buffs in second edition.
They're not like meme level things now, right? Like they can... And that's the thing I noticed is when I was putting this list together, I'm like, okay, well, their movement's slow, but if they're going to get to me, they're going to hit like a truck. And they did. Like, they really did. And it was hard to kill them. Now, this was also my first game learning Horns of Hashut, so I think that was a learning curve. I think I would have beat them the second time if I had played them. Just knowing how to play them a little bit better, right? So
Yeah, so you said it was all about, when we were talking off air, you said it was all about Ash Bomb and like planning out where you were going to put the Ash Bomb and how you were going to like bait people into being vulnerable to the Ash Bomb. Can you talk a little bit about that ability?
Yeah, so actually let me talk about sort of all the abilities, and I'm not going to go through all of them one by one, but the abilities of the Horns of Hashut are actually pretty good. Let me start with the reaction, because that's always like a big question in 2.0. Like, how is the reaction? The reaction is that like when somebody moves or finishes their move within 3 inches of you, you roll a dice, and if it's greater than the fighter's toughness characteristic, you allocate 3 points of damage to that fighter and subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of melee attack actions until the end of the battle round. So, in theory, that's pretty good, but it's only really good against, I would say, like other Warcry bands. Like, it sucks against Chaos or like Slaves to Darkness. It sucks against Stormcast Eternals. It sucks against Iron Golems, that all have toughness of like 5 and 6 or 4, 5, and 6. And so, now it has to say equal or greater. So even a toughness 4, I mean, you got a 50-50 chance. Like, is that worth giving up an activation? Maybe.
Probably not, right? Because
Probably
especially
not.
it's only your 100-point or more fighters who can even do that activation. So
Right.
they have some,
Exactly.
I'm looking at your worst fighter maybe is this Demolisher with weapon and shield, but
Yeah.
it's still got 3 attacks, twos and fours. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't really want to give that up for a 50-50 shot at doing 3 damage.
Right. Exactly. So, I never found myself even looking at the reaction as I was playing it. Do you know what I mean? Because it
Oh
just
yeah.
wasn't even really an option for me to use that. So, in fact, would say for the most part with the Horns of Hashut, I don't even think any of the reactions were really totally an option. I would have maybe used them with some of the Shatterers that are like the 55-point models. If I knew that they were going to die, I would have thrown out like the counter reaction or something
The
like that.
desperation counter that's kind
Yeah.
of becoming a thing in Warcry 2.0. Yeah.
Exactly. You're like, well, I'm going to die anyway, so here you go.
Yep.
And so, but I never found myself really in that position to do it either. I would activate them before they would die, So, so I never honestly never saw my even looked at the reactions.
I think reactions are situational. I think this one has a place, especially with forget the wounds, but it's reducing the strength of the attacks by 1.
Yeah,
If
which
you
could
got
be
somebody
good.
that's coming to kill you and they're rolling, and they're a 4, you're a 4, and they're rolling 4 dice, and you really want to stay alive because you want to activate and haven't had a chance yet to with this character, you can make those hits on 5s and 6s.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's situational. But like I said, I never found myself in that situation, so I didn't even consider it. The two that are the highlights for me. I mean, they've got well, there's three in here that I would say are actually pretty good, usable. The ones that aren't are like ones that's called Stampede of Iron, and that's really just like you make a charge, you roll a dice, you do damage on that
I think
on
that's
that roll.
a total waste.
It's it's never been my favorite, right?
Yeah.
The lay to waste is not terrible, but again, it's situational. It's like it's a double, and if you kill a enemy fighter, you can use a double to make a bonus move action or bonus attack action. So again, it's not terrible. It's actually not bad. And then the quad, I never got to use this quad, but it's the fighter makes a bonus melee attack action. In addition, add 1 to the damage points allocated by critical hits scored in that bonus attack action. So it's, I guess, like Rampage plus?
Rampage minus.
Rampage minus. Could you add to
Because
Rampage?
Rampage gives you 2 bonus. I mean, I guess it depends, right? If you
Yeah.
start in combat, then it's
Yeah.
better than Rampage.
Right.
But if you are trying to do multiple combats or do,
Right,
because
yeah.
you only get 1 bonus action.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
kinda-
exactly.
yeah.
If you're, and I was thinking about that, if you're in combat already, it's better than Rampage, because you add 1 to the damage as well, right? But if you had to move, Rampage is better than that. So anyway, those were like the least ones that I used. The one that's actually decent, it's available to everyone. It's called Merciless Cruelty, and it's the next attack action made by this fighter. This activation scores a critical hit on a 5+ if the target fighter already has 5 or more damage points allocated to them. So critting on a 5+, all of a sudden makes a lot of these fighters pretty good because they've got 4 or 5 as their crit numbers. So especially like a Shatterer, which again, this is their 55-point model. They have 3 attacks, strength 3, so they're usually hitting on 5s and 6s anyway. But if you could activate that with a double, all of a sudden they're crit. That could be 12. Like you could have like anywhere from 4 to 12 damage points allocated to somebody. So it's actually pretty good on the Shatterers. I liked it. I liked that one. The other one that I thought was really good.
I think it's good if you
Yeah, go ahead.
have no other option because they're still only rolling 3 dice at 5s and 6s.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It might be,
Like if-
we'd have to
yeah.
do the math, and I'd be curious what your thought is, Dan, and if it'd be better just to use the universal and just make yourself roll 4 dice.
My sense is if you get to attack twice, it's better to onslaught. But I think if you're only attacking once, I think you might be better with Merciless Cruelty,
Yeah.
but I'd have to do that math again.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah, because it's only the next attack action, right? So
But it's pretty close. I don't think it's much better, but that's fine. Sometimes, a lot of the time with doubles, you're just trying to get a little bit of extra sauce.
yeah. And the nice thing about that is it's not adding the value of the ability. You know what I mean? It's just it just happens on a 5+, which is I thought pretty good. It's not bad. All right, so there are two that were the standouts, the absolute standouts, and Jason will attest to this. I was trying to pull triples every single time I was rolling priority because there's two things in here that were great. The first one is for the Demolisher with the flame hurler. So this is like the flamethrower guy, right?
Yep.
His triple, it's really good. You pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. So if I got two triples, I was always rolling the high, or picking the high one, right?
Yep.
For each 4+, allocate 3 points of damage to that fighter. Then do the same for each other visible enemy fighter within 2 inches of that enemy fighter, but instead roll a number of dice equal to half the value of this ability rounding up. So this happened with Jason, where I think I targeted the Dread Warden that you were running. And
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and so I rolled like 6 dice. I think I put 3 wounds on you, took him to 9, and then I was able to roll 3 dice for the little ghoul that was next to him, and it took him off the table. And I just wasn't in a position to get, like, if I had been able to target that ghoul, I would have been able to hit another, like the Dread Warden and the other person next to them, but I just couldn't fix that, right, because of the movement. But still, though, like, if you're looking at a scenario where people are going to be grouping around an objective, like, there's center objectives and they're going to be jockeying for position, this is like an absolutely devastating ability for a triple. Absolutely devastating. And here's why I like it, even if there's just one person that you're targeting with it. The reason I like this ability is that it gets around the idea of shooting into combat. Because you're not shooting into combat, this is an ability. So even if I have a friendly model within combat, I can still use this ability to do a ranged attack, essentially, against an enemy fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very good. Jason recognized quickly that he was the threat.
Yep.
Like, he was the big threat on the table, that one model. And I totally misplayed him the first round, and I think that's a big part of why I lost. I played him a little bit better the second round. Yeah. And so, like, he was able to do much more damage. But, like, if you see him out there on the table, Dan, like, you need to kill him right away.
Good to know. I'll be advised.
Because he is a damage dealer, So, because then, like, the thing is even if he can get his normal range attack off, which is no slouch, right? Like, he's got 3 attacks at strength 5, 1, and 5. So, like, he can still do damage, and then he can get this ability off as well. He's worth it. Like, he's got some oomph. So that was him. So he was really good. Now, the other ability here that I kind of glossed over in the beginning, and I didn't realize it until halfway through the game how good this ability actually was. First off, this ability is able to be activated by every single model in the Horns of Hashut range except for the 55-point Shatterers. So all your Runators, your Demolishers, like all of them can activate. Basically, anybody who has a bullhorn head can activate this ability, and it's called the Ash Bomb. And you pick a visible point within 6 inches of this fighter that is on the battlefield floor or platform. You place a token there, and it's an Ash Bomb token. And while any enemy fighter is within 3 inches of that Ash Bomb token, you subtract 1 from their toughness characteristic and 1 from their attacks characteristics by them to a minimum of 1. So, and at the end of the battle round, you remove the token. But let me tell you, again, you get a group of people that's bunched up together, and you throw that Ash Bomb in the middle of them, it changes the game. And Jason can probably talk to this a little bit too, because unfortunately he was on the receiving end of it.
Yeah. I mean, did you want to like what? Do we want to hit it now, or kind of how the gameplay worked out on it, or what?
Oh yeah, just let's talk about it.
I mean, I think it's one of the best things that this army brings to bear. In fact, my list that I built one of my lists around this ability specifically because a 3-inch bubble in a melee combat just makes your 4 strength guys be hitting really heavy on a lot of enemies. I mean, you're going to be hitting on 3 pluses, right? Because it brings down it's the toughness, right? It brings down the toughness, but it also brings down the number of attacks.
Yeah.
And that's significant, bringing down the number of attacks of a group. It's like you haven't just nerfed one model, you've nerfed an enormous amount of attack power that you're bringing to a specific location on the table. But I think it also emphasizes, I think once people learn about that bomb, I think maybe the counter to it is, once again, movement. It's positioning, keeping your models greater than 3-inch separation is not entirely impossible to do and still play the board. I learned it. I didn't really understand the ash bomb, so I had some guys grouped together on an objective, but I think that's where this bomb is really going to shine. Just dump it on an objective, right? And then you got a 3-inch on the objective, which is where people typically need to be within to capture the objective, which means if you want to take that objective, you're going to take the debuff.
Yeah, I'm interested, like if the counterplay to this is great movement, but a lot of people are concerned in Warcry 2.0 about movement 3 warbands just being just so overwhelming once they get to the point, right? Like Graveguard just being impossible to chew through without them just chopping you up, or the KO Arcanauts that I was playing with, and people just going like, they have how many? 12 wounds? They only cost you 50 points? What is that? And it's like, well, they have move 3, so that's all the move 3 guys are getting really beefed up, either survivability or damage. If that's kind of a thing that people are concerned about, I do wonder about Horns of Hashut as a bit of a counter there, because of just how big the Ash Bomb can be on a point in terms of how much it swings a point. I'd be curious to think about, what 2 allies from outside of Chaos do you bring in to give them some real hitting powers, maybe something that benefits from that +1 toughness boost. Because if there's one Achilles heel of the Horns, I don't know if it came up in your games, but no single fighter of theirs seems very impressive. Like I look at the Ruinator Alpha stats, and I'm not intimidated,
No. I mean, he's like a tier 3 in a Daughters of Cain list.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I wouldn't even look at him twice in that list, or like a Soulblight Gravelord list. Like, not even an option to put in the list.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but so that's a bit of dead weight. But I do wonder about kind of bringing in a couple big scary allies, but then having just enough Shatterers to claim objectives, and then maybe a Ruinator and a Demolisher, because the Demolisher can also do the Ash Bomb. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it can.
So the Flame Hurler, you can walk around threatening either Ash Bomb or Engulfing Flames depending on the situation. I think there's some really interesting ways to maybe get a little more competitive with Horns of Hashut. Using a lot of allies, because I do think they need a little bit of help in terms of having one big damage dealer.
Yeah, look, they've got base movement 4, which isn't terrible. Like, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not like
it's bad,
amazing, but like it's average. It's average. And so that's not bad. I will say this, that with that Ash Bomb, these guys hit above their weight class a lot, because all of a sudden their strength 4 attacks that they have are like their strength, some of their strength 4s, especially the Ruinators, right? The strength 4 attacks are all of a sudden hitting on 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s with a lot of people out there, you know, and so they're hitting above their weight class a little bit. Now, man, the Demolishers, I'm just super underwhelmed by the Demolishers. You know, these are your 105 point guys, and this is
You're talking
Warcry's.
about the ones with crushers, not the ones with flamers that we just talked about.
Yes,
loving,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so there's 3 kinds of Demolishers, right? There's the one that's the flamethrower that we say is amazing.
Yeah.
There's one that has a hammer and shield, basically, and he's got better toughness, but you know, less attacks. And then there's one that has like a double hammer, basically. And those guys are 105 points. I think that they are the epitome, like they epitomize Warcry's problem of like the mid-tier fighters and how like they're just kind of irrelevant in the game.
Yeah.
You know, like their stats just aren't great enough to justify the point values, and like the guys with the chaff like are often some of the most heralded ones because they do a lot for their point value. And these guys at 105 points, they really don't do a lot for their point value. They do have a base damage of 2, that's great, but their strength attacks are 3. So unless you have the Ash Bomb out there, they're hitting on 5s and 6s all the time, pretty much. So I don't know. I would rather trade those guys in and throw in like an Ogoroid Myrmidon, maybe a Fulmoroid Crusher, maybe a Mindstealer Sphinx, like throw in another ally that you could do. And I haven't even started thinking about leader allies that you could throw
so
in.
I think a good one to throw in just off the top of my scan would be, you know, the Beast, something like the Beast Lord, right? He's 180 points. He's not technically he's a hero, right? That's how you can bring him in. But he 5 attacks, 4 strength. Well, now you got 5 attacks hitting on 3s a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah,
doing
that's great with
2-4.
the Ash Bomb.
And he's doing 2-4. So pair him with an Ash Bomb thrower and just run around the board with the Ash Bomb thrower, throwing the Ash Bomb and smacking things upside of the back of the head.
Yeah, so I would probably, like, my list with the Horns of Hashut would look something like the Ruinator, that's 165 points, 2 Demolishers with the Flamethrowers, and then, like, maybe 3 or 4 Shatterers, and then an ally or 2, depending on points, you know? Because you can take... Oh, man. Like, you have to have a leader from your warband, right?
Yeah. You have to have one with the leader from your
warband
faction, right? What's it called?
Yeah,
warband faction, whatever.
So the thing is that there's only one leader, which is the Ruinator Alpha. Because the regular Ruinator, he's actually point for point much better. He's got 5 wounds less, and his crit damage is 4 instead of 5. But he actually has 1 more attack, same strength, same movement, same toughness, but he's only 125 points rather than 165. So if I were to choose one Ruinator, I would choose 125 point one, but I wouldn't. But you have to have the leader, so you're going to need to take the Ruinator Alpha. So yeah, my list would look like Ruinator Alpha, the Demolisher with the Flame Hurler, and like 3 or 4 Shatterers, and then an ally or 2 that could come in and give a little bit more oomph to make up for the mid-tier fighters that are missing, you know. So that's kind of my thought after playing them.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, either way, it seems like there's real promise there, just with how good the Ash Bomb is and how you can combo that with other things.
I think so. I was surprised at how well they did against your Flesh Eater Courts, Jason.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, education. Like I didn't really understand the impact of the Ash Bomb or the Flame.
Yep.
There. Because I agree with you. I think the individual fighters themselves didn't really scare me. And I kind of learned that even, we had this one objective that kind of got pounced on by one of your groups that came in round 2.
Uh-huh.
And at first I was like, holy crap, I forgot these guys are coming in. And then after they came in, I was kind of underwhelmed by their noodling that they were hitting me with.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just, I was still able to control that objective through, I think appropriate movement and bringing other characters in. But that Flamer and the Ash Bomb, I think, are significant. And And I think, I built, my list. I don't know if we're at that stage yet where we want to talk about what our lists would be, but you just gave yours, so I'm going to give mine.
Yeah, sure.
I started with just a straight flat one with an Orgroid Myrmidon in it, right? But then thinking about those the demos with Crusher, same concept. Like, man, they're not really doing much. Can I tweak that a little bit to get more capability? So I actually have 2 lists that I'm working on. One is Ruinator A with Heavy Flail, just to get the leader in there. Demo with Flame. A Beast Lord.
Okay.
An Ogroid Myrmidon. A Chaos Warhound, and a Shatterer. It's a little bit of soupy, but I like it because I've got 3 dudes who can throw. I got 2 dudes who can do the flame wherever, and I can position them differently on the board. I got 3 people who can throw that ash bomb, right? I got the Warhound thing, which I've talked to you about before. I really like the Thrall's reaction, the Master's Voice reaction, where if any enemy finishes a move action within 3 inches of a hero, that Thrall gets a bonus move and attack as long as you can finish within 1 inch of the enemy, right? And those things move 8. So it's like you get you're trading 1 action to move and attack. And I think it's really good to lock people up. But I think the Myrmidon and the Beast Lord can really benefit. The Myrmidon's there to scare, right? The Beast Lord's there to benefit from the Ash Bomb, and then the Shatterer is just chaff because I have 55 points left. That's kind of my thought. The other one that I was thinking about was just Ruinator A, Demo with Flame. I had 2 Crushers in there, Demo with Crushers. I actually threw a Shatter in there and then a Mutalith Vortex.
Okay.
And
cool.
At first I was thinking I wanted to put a what's the thing that can freeze you in place? The Mind Stealer
Spheres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Necronomicon.
The Mind Stealer, because on a double you can freeze people in place. So freeze them in place and keep throwing ash bombs on them, or freeze them in place and keep throwing flames on them. To clear them out, right? But I like the Mutilex Vortex because of its Maw Tentacles. First of all, it's a monster.
The
and
pull
I think
ability.
I think the 3 activation of the monster and the monster triple that we talked about before, the Dragon Maw, and then the Maw Tentacles on a double. So now I got triples that I'm saving for my flames and my ash bombs, and I got a double there to be able to control where people are on the board with my big monster. And my monster can activate multiple times, which, keep in mind that means you can take advantage situationally of multiple abilities with a monster per turn. So
yeah, I think it's important to recognize that this warband is very triples hungry. Right, because you need a triple to do the ash bomb, you need a triple to do your flamer thing.
Yep.
So, you get 2 doubles, and sure, that'll give you 2 triples or whatever. But like, if you get a natural triple, and a double, like if you've banked the wild dice, maybe you can walk away with 2 triples and a double that round.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think a triple and a double is good, but I think this is why I kind of like the Vortex Beast. That Maw Tentacles is only a double. And in a double, I can grab any enemy fighter within 6 inches, and I can suck it towards me. And that's movement control. That's 6 inches. That's more than a lot of those fighters' ability to move back to wherever they ever wanted if they try to do a disengage.
Yeah.
And that's a double. So doubles are super easy, and I think it's typically easy to get with your wild die to get at least 1 triple. So I think it's very reasonable to every round be starting with a double and a triple to be able to work on. And if you get lucky, maybe you get a better roll on another turn.
So this, Jason, you kind of bring us into the last thing that we want to talk about today, which is our one of our main topics is about monsters.
Yeah.
Right? Monsters in the game. So each faction, unlike allies, only Chaos has, designated allies right now, the non-hero allies. with the ally rune mark on it. But every faction has monsters, and this is an interesting concept to the game, and we saw this firsthand at the Nova Open when you brought a Terrorgeist.
Yeah.
You brought a Terrorgeist to a gyrocopter fight one time,
Right.
I think, right?
That was fun.
So yeah, you're talking about adding a monster into your list, and now with Warcry 2.0, you can do that. And they aren't cheap. They usually range from somewhere like 250 points to 300, almost 400 points. And some are better than others. But the interesting thing about monsters is that they all have 3 activations, but you can only make 1 activation at a time. So you got to make an activation, and then it's the other person's turn. Then you make an activation, then it's the other person's turn. So it's not like you get a move, move and then attack twice, all in one fell swoop. So they've got their special rules. They got their special abilities. Dan, what are your thoughts about having monsters in Warcry 2.0 at this point?
If you want to win, you need one.
Interesting.
Or like you should think about one. I think you can win without one, but you should think very heavily about one. But not all of them are going to be a great idea all of the time. If they're on a really big base, let me throw out the Skitterstrand Arachnarok as an example. 160 millimeter base, does not fly,
Oh, jeez.
only moves 8 inches.
Yeah.
So 160 millimeters is most of 8 inches right there. So your ability to get from one area to another, 160 millimeters is 6.29 inches. So the back of your base, when you move, the back of your base is only going to be an inch and a half past where the front
my
of your
gosh.
base was.
Oh my
So
gosh.
if there's any terrain on the board whatsoever, even if you had a that might be one of the ones that has a double that lets you pretend to fly for a little bit. With just 8 inches of move, you're not doing anything, right? So some of the monsters, you just can't really play them on a Warcry board unless you are like, think of it as narrative play where you are the DM and you're creating a game and the bad guy team, right? Like you could do this in narrative if you were sort of creating your buddy's campaign. And then the Arachnarok might be a great choice because it's real creepy and really evocative, and like you can set up the terrain to make it work that way. But otherwise, that one you can't really use. But
Yeah,
the
in
ones
in a tournament terrain, that wouldn't work very well at all, because tournament
Right.
terrain, you're supposed to have 1 to 2 pieces in each quadrant, and so it would just be sitting in the middle waiting to do something.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the monster rule, which some folks may not know, is unless its whole base can sit on a platform, it automatically falls off. So
Yeah.
you can't even put it on a lot of like 160 millimeter base, like that doesn't even fit on any of the terrain that's out there right now. Like none of it. So
Yeah. But then on the flip side, the Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon, they move 12 inches, so even having that 130 millimeter pie plate, if there's anywhere on the board to sit down, they can find it because 12-inch move is enough to get them there. That extra 4 inches, and then having a little bit smaller base is enough. The Chimera flies,
and
and
it's
then
on a
some 120 by 92.
Yeah, that's right.
And the 120 by 92s aren't so bad. They still are going to have problems. 92 millimeters is pretty thick. I brought a Stormcast War Hydra to a narrative event in my kind of sideboard, sort of, and I could never bring it out because it couldn't fit anywhere. But some of them you can do. And I wanted to talk about the Dankhold Troggoth because it's only on a 60 millimeter base.
Yeah.
The stats are a little weaker than most other monsters, but the 60 millimeter base, you can put that anywhere, right? You can even get onto most terrain that way. So that one's kind of interesting.
What's his
Yeah.
movement?
6. So he's not, you know, he's faster than most regular fighters, but he's not
Yeah.
like, burning down the
Yeah.
racetracks near you.
I
Um,
think I think the Ale Guzzler Gargant's also on a 60 millimeter, isn't he?
yeah, that's another one. 90 by 52.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, in some situations, is in terms of squeezing through a tight space, 52 is actually better than 60 millimeter, right? So
Yeah.
that one's pretty doable as well. Yeah.
He's also got a 6-inch move, and can do some decent damage. He's got um, yeah. So I like you said, there's some monsters out there that are better than others. I think it comes down to movement is the key, movement and the size of the base. Like that's the first thing that I would look at in terms of putting a monster in my list is like one, like what's their movement, two, what's their base size, and then from there you can look at their points cost and attacks and abilities and all that stuff. Because the fact is that the monstrous abilities that are in the core rulebook are all really pretty good.
They're insane. I think they messed up. They're so good,
You
right?
done messed up, Games Workshop.
When I was saying you have to have one, this is kind of what I was obliquely referencing, but
Yeah.
I do think they're a little better than they should be, specifically Dragon Maul. Um, I don't know, Jason, you played a whole tournament with access to Dragon Maul. What are your thoughts on it?
It's one of the best abilities in the game for a triple.
Yeah.
I think it's a little OP for being a triple, to be honest, because like I said, it's very easy to get a triple. The only time you can't get a triple is if you just have a really crap priority roll and you roll like four or 5 singles, right? Which
Right.
is just, how many times does that really happen? But
Yeah, and it's
just
not
too-
even. I was gonna say it's not even like based on the value of this ability triple. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
and that's the other thing. It really should be like maybe something like, based on, pick an enemy fighter up to the value of this ability inches away, or just something like that, because it's always pick an enemy fighter within 6 inches. Take them off. It's one of those, take them off the board, put them on the board anywhere within an inch of your monster's base, and it's like roll 3 4s-ups or something, and to do 3 damage each for every 4-up or something like that.
And these monsters have like
yeah.
4-inch bases.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
10 inches of
Yeah,
you
totally.
teleport someone 10 inches anywhere you want. You can teleport them in the middle of your guys. You
Yeah.
can teleport them.
That's what I'm talking about. So
like-
and that's
yeah.
the reason why I was talking about the Mutalith Vortex, right? Is if you got the triple and you don't have the situation for the other part, do the Dragon Maw, boom, you're moving that guy huge and do
Yep.
damage. If you don't have a triple, you only have a double, doesn't matter. Move him 6 inches, still grabbing somebody 6 inches away from you and moving him towards you. So you're getting access with a monster to controlling the board by movement. The one thing that we say is always kind of come back to is one of the most critical attributes in the game, and you have control over it with that ability, the Dragon Maw ability, and you do damage.
Yeah.
and you do damage.
And here's the other thing you got to remember. Now that model is right next to you for your next activation.
Right.
Right.
And if they've already activated, there's nothing they can do but sit there and wait for you to attack them again.
Yeah, you don't have to use your movement ability to
that's the
as
key.
one of your activations.
If I am 6 inches away from an enemy that I want my monster to go after, and I have a triple, I'll use the triple, bring you to me, put you wherever I want, do damage from the Dragon Maw, and then use my activation to attack you with my crazy monster chomp.
Yeah.
It's just so overwhelming.
And unless they can somehow tie you down using inspiring presence or something, a monster can always hunt down its target in any round, because let's say you move once, Dragon Maul them, then they try to disengage to get away, you move again, and then you have this third activation, right?
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
There's none of that give and take that there normally is in Warcry with
Right.
when you're hunting something.
Yeah.
The monster can always win the hunt, so
Yep.
you can never get away from a monster if you're trying to get away from it.
Now, I will say that I did notice when playing when people first of all, it's just like when I played my Terrorgeist in AOS, right? It gathers everyone's attention. So when the monster hits the table, it's crazy crushing when it hits the table, but it gathers attention away from other things. So it's very easy to use the monster as bait to drag people over to certain areas. But once they do knock you down on the track, your movement really starts to suffer, and it does start to become a little difficult to engage your monster in what may be necessary in a late game. And so what I'll say to that is I found very quickly that I needed, right when the game started, to just think, okay, where do I want my monster to be this game? Because right at the first turn, he goes there, and he really doesn't leave that zone of the game board until that was over. I found that with every match that I used him with.
Interesting.
It did kind of draw, as I was watching you play, it did kind of draw moss to the flame, right? Like, they're like, oh my gosh, I got to take care of this thing.
Yep.
And I wonder if they would have been better served just leaving it alone sometimes.
Yeah, and I did play one. Player. Actually, it was the cities one with the gyrocopters. He learned, I think, right after the first round. Okay, and I don't need to bother this guy. I'm just going to stay away from it. And he threw chaff at it to lock it up, and then just cleared away from it. But most everyone else, I think Dan, ours was a little bit more strategic game, but most everyone else kind of saw it and were trying to knock on it or do damage.
Yeah. And part of that was, I think, my warband had kind of been created to be able to put enough damage into one place to actually take a monster out.
Yeah.
And I don't think everybody's
No, they weren't ready for it
that way. Yeah.
They weren't ready for it. And that's okay. I didn't even really know what I was doing. I kind of actually changed my list like the day before. I was like, I'm going to bring a monster just for fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I honestly thought everyone else was bringing a monster. That's why I did it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got, like we said in the beginning of the segment, that monsters exist in every faction, right? That you can choose between them. Mm-hmm. Order only has two, which is the Charybdis and the War Hydra. Dan, you said you were about to bring a War Hydra to an event. What do you think of those two monster options?
So I actually think the War Hydra is maybe the second worst monster in the game, which is why I felt comfortable bringing it to a narrative event.
Yeah.
I don't think the War Hydra is good. I think it's on 6-inch move, and
yes,
but it can get +3, right? For a double, you can give it +3 move.
Okay.
But big base does pretty respectable damage, but not remarkable for a monster. Big and scary the way every monster is big and scary, but a lot less scary than most other monsters that are out there. And it doesn't have the redeeming quality that the Charybdis has, which is a legitimately amazing ability. The Charybdis has Abyssal Howl, which any triple is going to be a little bit less valuable because you're giving up Dragon Maul to do it. But Abyssal Howl, you might consider doing that. It nets every single enemy fighter within 3 inches of the Charybdis, and that's actually
a number of inches equal to the value of the ability.
Oh, I might have just been thinking 3 inches on average then. Yeah, so
on average.
Sometimes even better than 3 inches, right? If you can get a triple on, that's interesting. So if your triple is on a 1 or a 2, then you're probably just using Dragon Maul. But if it's on a 5 or a 6, Abyssal Howl, this is where the big base can actually work for you, right? If you put that 3-up net on every single fighter in your opponent's warband, and then all of a sudden 2/3 of their warband can't move, that could be pretty incredible. And with that big base, your aura on a 5-inch aura is just massive in terms of the percentage of the board that covers. So the Charybdis, I think, is interesting, but again suffers from kind of the stat issues of the War Hydra, of just that 6-inch move, big base, hard to use on a lot of boards. But if you do use it, can't fly, right? But
Yeah.
if you do get to put it into position, I think it's going to be pretty impressive for you.
Yeah, our friend Justin Orton, who won the Nova Open, he had a list in mind of a Charybdis that sat in the middle of the playing field, basically, and would just freeze or net people with that ability throughout the game. And for a tournament, believe it or not, that's not a bad plan because normally the center of the board is open enough for you to put your monster there. So
I think you got to find a way to get it.
you just need to get it there, depending on your deployment. So you do need to get it there. But if you could get it there, then that's not a bad place to go. However, I could see that thing getting stuck in a quadrant somewhere because that's where the shield deployment was.
Yeah.
Or on an edge of a board, or sometimes maybe not even being able to come in the board depending on where the terrain is.
Actually, you just hit another point that I forgot to mention about monsters. I think it's kind of an emergent benefit to bring in a monster.
Oh, that's true. Good point.
Is that a monster takes up a full group, dagger, hammer, shield, which means it allows you to really beef up the unit quantities in the other two that are there, right? So if you somehow fit in a unit that's got, well, let's just say you've got 7 models, right, and one of them is a monster, you can put 3 in the dagger and the hammer and put your monster in the shield. Did I do the math right? Yeah, I did the math. Yeah. So I had my Flesh Eater Corps. I had a bunch of ghouls, right? So my dagger and my hammer they had a lot of models in them. Like I'd never played with that many models in those groups because the Terrorgeist took up the entire other one.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of an emergent thing. That's a benefit of taking a model. You can beef up those other groups that are going to deploy.
Yeah, especially if you know that on average the other battle groups are going to have 2 to 3 in them.
Yep.
Something like that, depending. So, definitely. So, yeah, I agree. I think the Charybdis Dan is the better monster in the order, and I think it's like you got to know how to use it because it really, its main benefit is that Abyssal Howl. And because it's otherwise you can use the universal monster abilities with other models that don't have as big a bases or can fly and stuff like that. So the Abyssal Howl is really the only reason why you would take it, in my opinion. But you're limited options when you have an order army. So if you want a monster, that's the one you got to take.
It's definitely the better of the two. It's definitely decent and reasonable, but I would say it's the best monster in a Grand Alliance.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly. We talked about Bringers of Death, right? So the 2 monsters that we have there are the Terrorgeist and the Zombie Dragon. And the that's in Destruction. So Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon, those are the 2 that we have. And Jason, what made you take the Terrorgeist over the Zombie Dragon?
So it's a good question. When I was looking, well, first of all, I have a soft spot in my heart for Terrorgeist.
Yes, you do.
I do.
Yes, you do.
But it's cheap.
The head looks better.
I think
I'll just say that. Yeah.
It's 375 points for a Terrorgeist and 405 for a Zombie Dragon. So in my case, it was a point value.
Yeah.
I've modded my model so that I can swap the head. My heads are magnetized, so I can swap it to become a Zombie Dragon just by flipping a little head off.
By the way, my favorite is when somebody bumps it and the head falls off.
Oh,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah.
like they freak out every time.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Yeah. Do you know how much that costs? No. But for me, it was a point value, and I liked the. Remember, this is before I had actually played with monsters. So I liked the concept of the Death Scream, but then I found that if I had a triple, I was using Dragon Maw anyways, so I never really used the Death Scream. But that's it. I think, they both have pretty equivalent stats. The Zombie Dragon has an additional attack, so instead of rolling 4 attacks, you're rolling 5s.
Mm.
But it's costing you 40 points to do that, to get that extra attack. And I wanted to spend those other 40 points somewhere else.
I wasn't super impressed with the zombie dragon abilities.
Well, I think the triple's pretty strong. The sword-like claws.
Oh, that's true.
Add 3 to the attack characteristics, so now you're rolling 8 attacks.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Which could be pretty significant if he's high up on his track, for sure. But like I said, I think movement and positioning is one of the most important things in the game. So
Yeah.
I would be using my zombie not to get in and try to kill stuff. Well, not to get in to try to hunt things down so much as I would to drag and move things around the board.
Yeah. The Terrorgeist abilities, other than the double movement, are not good.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why I steered away from him when I was using it.
Yeah. Which is fine, because, again, the monster abilities are so good, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about the Harbinger of Destruction. We talked about the Dankhold Trogoth, how he's probably a good choice just because of his base size. The Ale-Guzzler Gargant is essentially kind of the same thing. The differentiating factors there are not huge. I mean, both of them are 315 points. No, sorry, the Dankhold Trogoth's 280. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
the Trogoth has a little bit more pedestrian attack characteristics than the Ale-Guzzler does. So I think they're kind of evenly matched overall, but I think I would go for the Ale-Guzzler just because it also has a pretty small base. You guys just pointed out to me of the 90 by 52 is pretty reasonable and pretty manageable, and then to still be throwing around I think it's 4 attacks but on 5 strength and then 4/8 to start, and when they bracket you once, I think you only go down to 4/6, so you're still pretty good there. That's enough damage to be terrifying. Big bunch of wounds and then 3 activations, right? I think it's really interesting because the Tyrant is probably the scariest non-monster fighter in the game, and it's also 315 points.
Right.
42 wounds, does the same amount of damage as the Ale-Guzzler Gargant. So it's really about, do you value the extra activation more, or and the access to Dragon Maul, or do you value the idea that it doesn't bracket down for the Tyrant?
Right.
And I think that's really close. I don't know what the correct answer is for you there, but it's, they're both really good. We've seen people win tournaments with Tyrants in 2.0. Not in Nova, no one brought one to Nova, but in Norway, someone won a tournament with a Tyrant. So you can do it. I just think it's really close which one of those you would want to take, and they're both excellent. Some of the best stuff you can be doing in Destruction.
Yeah, I think if you were concerned about points, the Dankhold Trogoth is a very good option.
Totally.
Very good option. I mean, he only has 3 attacks, got a range of 2 and strength 5, and doing damage on 5/8. I mean, he's that's Ogoroid Myrmidon stats right there, and he's got more wounds than a Myrmidon does.
And
so
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the Brugit from the Gobapalooza would still buff the Dankhold Trogoth's attacks characteristics,
Oh,
right?
man, that's a combo there. I think you're right. Because it's a friendly fighter. Right?
Yeah, there's the funny thing in Destruction where not having a lot of attacks on a really big guy sometimes isn't that bad if you just have a Brugit babysit them. So I wonder if a Brugit plus a Dankhold Trogoth is a nice little combo there.
Yeah, actually, that's not terrible. That'd be like a twins. It'd be like the movie Twins.
Yeah.
You got your little Danny DeVito Brugit. You got your Arnold Schwarzenegger Dankhold.
Yeah.
So
I did see the Dankhold only moves 5 inches, but that's still not bad considering it's on a regular fighter-sized base.
Right.
So it's really that tiny base size that's the big advertisement for the Dankhold.
So, I believe Peter, good friend of the show, he brought a Dinkhold Trogoth in his Gits list at Nova Open. And I know he brought it, and he said that he really, really liked it. His other little models were dying too fast. So he had to kind of rethink his list a little bit. But he was a big fan. He thought that the Trogoth was pulling its weight quite a bit throughout the tournament.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was good. All right, so let's get to Chaos. The clear winner, I think, of Chaos, of all the monsters, is the Chimera. This thing is a beast. Now, the Chimera is 390 points. I think it's the most expensive monster out there by far. But
After the zombie dragon, yeah.
Yeah, but goodness gracious! I mean, this thing can fly. It doesn't have a huge base. It has 6 attacks at 6 strength and 510 damage. And so when it brackets down, it goes to 4-8, which is almost all of the other baseline profiles for the other monsters.
Yeah, it's maybe the best unit in the game. I don't know. I mean, and it moves 12 inches flying, so like that big base just doesn't really matter because you can put the Chimera anywhere. And like we said, it doesn't have the 130 millimeter pie plate, it has the 120 by 90.
It's a lot more freedom.
Yeah, and just every little piece of it, right? Like all the other monsters are on 4 attacks, 5 attacks. The Chimera's like, nope, 6. Strength, nope, also 6. Just like every stat is just kind of pushed up one notch ahead of where you think any reasonable person would put put their stats.
Totally.
Yeah, it can. If you count Dragon Maul, it can one-shot any fighter in the game almost in one attack because it throws around, I think on average 25 damage, and that's on an average attack is 25 damage. I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then when you think about, flying wherever it wants, dragon mauling to get over to it and then attacking, it's pretty terrifying.
So this is a monster hunter, right? And it's also kind of a big unit hunter. So your tyrants, your Cruel Boys leader on the mounted Cruel Boys leader. Sorry, the name's escaping me right this second, but the Cruel Boys Nashtooth, like he's like 38 wounds, your Gore Gruntas, like your Orc Mega Bosses, like this is what this monster does. He goes after those guys. Like you don't send him after the little Gobos and the like the little Arcanauts and things like that. You send him after your biggins, because he just eats them for lunch. So one interesting thing that he has a triple that subtracts 1 from the attacks characteristics of all enemy fighters while they're within 6 inches of him. So he's got kind of an Ash Bomb ability himself with that triple. And that might be, I think, situational. I think it's situational, but that might be something to use instead of the Dragon Maul, just depending on what you got going on. Because if he can affect all those enemies around, like that's pretty good.
It's something like what the way Jason used his Terrorgeist against me in that treasure mission. If it were a Chimera, then you would probably use that triple, because now all of a sudden I can't really kill the Chimera when I rush in on it. And then all of a sudden the round changes, and now I've rushed in on a Chimera, and he's got 3 activations to play with. So I think there's definitely uses for it. Even though you'll probably use Dragon Maul more often, it's still something you will use over it sometimes.
So, other monsters in this list, there's a Chaos Gargant. I think he's got all the same, it's pretty much all the same abilities. In fact, exact same abilities as the Ale Guzzler Gargant. This is just a Chaos version. So, if you like that over in the Destruction, like, go ahead and try him out in Chaos. But I think one of the surprising monsters that I like in here is the Gorgon. So the Gorgon's only 330 points, but he's got 50 wounds. 5 attacks, strength 6, 410 damage, not 4-8, right, in his first bracket. And then the second bracket is a 4-8. So he actually only just takes 2 off of the critical hits in terms of damage once he gets bracketed down. So I'm going to be honest, I think the Gorgon's like right behind. And I looked up his base, and his base is a... Oh man, I had it right here. Let's see. The Gorgon's base is a 120 by 92.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not huge. It's not terribly huge. You know, it's not a 90 by 52 like a Chaos Gargant is. It's a little bit bigger, but at the same time, like I think this is a pretty good monster. Definitely
I'm a
could get some
believer in
play.
the Gorgon.
Yeah.
And only 6-inch move is a little tough there, but doesn't the Gorgon? It's one of the ones that has that plus 3-inch move. Yeah, so it can get to where it's going. And just like you said, the damage output is absurd, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the Cygor.
Okay. Yeah.
Mostly because the abilities, it's kind of doing a totally different thing than the other monsters, but the Cygors, so it starts, it has this funny thing where it can pick up rocks for a double, and then it can throw rocks for a triple. And you have to pick up a rock before you throw a rock, except you start with a rock in hand, right? Because, they're modeled with a rock, I think.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not empty-handed, pick a visible enemy fighter within 15 inches, which is a long way. And everything is visible to the Cygor because the Cygor is so tall.
Humongous. Yep.
And then roll a number of dice equal to the value of the ability. For each 4-up, allocate 5 damage.
That's
5.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So if you're rolling, say, 4 dice on this triple, and 2 of them, you're threatening 10 damage anywhere 15 inches away. I think it's a really incredible job at doing what would a ranged monster be like, because all these other monsters are melee monsters, and this is truly a ranged, cannon monster.
Yeah, this is like a trebuchet.
Yeah, absolutely. And if your triple's on a 5 or a 6, all of a sudden, your opponent has to just live with the fact that you might just one-shot kill their most important fighter, right?
Yeah.
And of course, with the big drawback to all the non-flying monsters being that, you might get messed up by the terrain and not be able to affect the board the way you'd like to. The Cygor doesn't care, right? Because the Cygor, even if you get stuck, you still get to do damage from long range. And then if you do get to close with them, 4 attacks, 4 damage, 8 crit. That's not as good as some of the monsters we've talked about, but it's still very respectable.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. For 310 points, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. And that ability you're talking about, again, throwing rocks, it's not a ranged attack, so you don't have to worry about people being in combat. Right?
Yeah.
So that's important. So he can throw it at anybody he wants to. Gosh darn it.
He's just so accurate,
Yeah.
like he's not worried about hitting his buddies.
That's right. That's right. Now, Jason, you were looking at the Mutalith Vortex Beast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit about what my thought there was behind that. It's really the control, right? The double to be able to move things that are 6 inch away from you.
Yep.
And 50 hit points or wounds, 50 wounds, right?
Yeah.
They're not. I think their damage is okay. I think it's all about controlling and moving and having 3 activations.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a base move of 8, right? And then when it gets bracketed, it goes down by 1. And so that's not... that's better than a lot of the other ones, for sure.
Yeah, his damage output is not really super...
It's in line with a lot of other ones, right? 4-8 to start.
Yeah, I think relative to the other ones that we were talking about that are also available inside of Chaos, if you're looking for a monster specifically to do massive damage, they're not your pick. I think.
Isn't the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a control monster in my opinion.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
It's the Chaos Charybdis.
Yeah.
No, there you go.
Yeah. Very good. The Hell Pit Abomination. This is 350 points, similar to the Gorgon. It has 410 damage, right, as its base. And I mean, it's okay. I think like I'd be looking at the Gorgon is 330. This is 20 points more.
Yeah, I don't like it compared to the Gorgon
Yeah.
or the Slaughter Brute. If
Right.
neither of those existed, I think I'd talk about the Hell Pit Abomination. Like, wow, pretty scary.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give you 20 more points worth of stuff compared to the Gorgon. And then going up 20 more points to the Slaughter Brute brings you from 6 move to 8 move.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I it's kind of caught in the middle between the two damage monsters, and it's just not as good as either the cheaper one or the more expensive one, for the points you're investing.
Right. Right. Which we kind of skipped over the Slaughter Brute. He's 370 points, 50 wounds. I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to be putting in 370 points, I might as well up it to 390 and get the Chimera. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch the Slaughter Brute until the Chimera gets a nerf, which I expect it will eventually, but maybe not in the next Tome of Champions because they might not have time to
Right.
nerf Chimeras before the Tome of Champions. So we might be actually looking at like 18 months of Chimeras being as they are. So
Right.
until that happens, the Slaughter Brute, I would take it. Yeah.
So the next big event in America that we're looking at for Warcry is probably Adepticon. How many people are going to come with chimeras to that? Do you think?
I mean, at least one, because I will be. And
I know a guy named Dan. He'll be there.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see 4 or 5 chimeras. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be surprised if we see them soft banned but it won't be soft banned at Adepticon because that's kind of like directed by GW, sort of. Not
Oh, interesting.
exactly,
Okay.
but it's like I don't know. I think they would do it pretty by the book there.
Yeah.
Um, but we're seeing more and more like mid-sized tournaments at in various cities.
Yeah.
I think the Ohio crew is probably going to get like a 15 to 20 player tournament going at some point this winter, and they've got a 60 but that's going to be the 60 player event that's already sold out in the UK is actually run by GW, so that maybe we'll see chimeras there. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they're pretty scary, and yeah, like I said before, we might have 18 months of them.
Right.
Oof.
Right. So, right on. Okay. Well, this was, I think, a very good monster review list. I have a feeling that most players of Warcry that use monsters probably already have a lot of them because they have maybe like a Gitz army that's got Tragus, or they've got the Aelgas or Gargant or something like that. But hopefully this review gave our listeners a good idea of what's out there and what's maybe better than others, so that if they do want to go out and buy a monster, they know which one to get. But as always, you guys can hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, catch us in the Discord, ask us questions about maybe if you got questions or comments about monsters, please let us know. If you got questions, comments about Horns of Hashut, let us know. We'd absolutely love to engage with you on that. And until then, keep the dice rolling and have a great night.
See ya.
See ya.